Naomi Ellis thought she was meeting her blind date, but when she unknowingly sits with billionaire Adrian Wolfe, she captivates him instantly. Now he can't let her go, but can love bridge the gap between their worlds? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Naomi Ellis ran a brush through her shoulder-length brown hair one last time and checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her small apartment. The dress she had borrowed from her sister fit well enough, though it was a bit tight around the hips. It would have to do. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been on a date, let alone at a fancy restaurant like Bellini's. "You look nice," said her younger sister Katie, leaning against the doorframe. At 19, Katie was studying nursing at the community college while Naomi worked 2 jobs to keep them both afloat since their parents had passed away 3 years ago. "I don't know why I let Jen talk me into this," Naomi sighed, applying a thin layer of lip gloss. "A blind date? At Bellini's? I can't afford to eat there, and I have nothing in common with the kind of guy who can." "Maybe he's nice," Katie offered, "and you need to get out more. All you do is work at the diner, work at the bookstore, pay bills, and take care of me." "That's not true. Sometimes I sleep," Naomi joked, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. At 28, her dreams of finishing college and starting her own business had been put on hold indefinitely. "Just promise you'll give him a chance," Katie said. "Jen says he's perfect for you." Naomi grabbed her purse, a knockoff designer bag she'd found at a thrift store. "I'll be home by 10. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge. It's Friday night." "You better not be home by 10, Katie called after her as Naomi hurried out the door. The bus was late, making Naomi even more nervous as she checked the time on her phone. She was already running 15 minutes behind. She texted Jen, "Running late. What does this guy look like again?" Jen replied, "Dark hair, wearing a blue suit, table for 2. You'll know him when you see him." Great, Naomi thought. Super helpful. Bye. The time she reached Bellini's, a sleek Italian restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows and elegant white tablecloths, Naomi was nearly 30 minutes late. She smoothed down her dress, took a deep breath, and walked in. The hostess looked at her with a slightly raised eyebrow. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting someone," Naomi said, scanning the restaurant. Her eyes landed on a man sitting alone at a table for 2. Dark hair, blue suit. He was looking down at his phone, his profile sharp and distinguished. "There he is, thank you." Without waiting for the hostess, Naomi walked over, her heart pounding. The man was incredibly handsome, with broad shoulders and a jawline that could cut glass. He looked successful, polished, and completely out of her league. "I hope you don't mind, but I'm really bad at first dates," she blurted out as she slid into the chair across from him. She laughed nervously. "And I'm so sorry I'm late. The bus was behind schedule, and then I almost got off at the wrong stop and—" She took a breath. "I'm rambling. Sorry. I'm Naomi." The man looked up, his intense grey eyes widening slightly. Fear and surprise. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it again, studying her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I should probably tell you right away," Naomi continued, feeling the need to fill the silence. "I'm not usually the kind of person who eats at places like this. My friend Jen set this up, and she thinks I need to expand my horizons or whatever." She made air quotes with her fingers. "But between my job at the diner, my shifts at the bookstore, and taking care of my sister, I barely have time to eat, let alone date. So, thanks for waiting." The man tilted his head slightly, a hint of amusement touching his lips. "I think, and I should also probably warn you," Naomi interrupted, her nerves getting the better of her, "that I'm probably not what you were expecting. Jen tends to exaggerate when she describes me to people. I'm not vivacious or the life of the party. I'm just me. Simple, ordinary Naomi who works too much and worries too much and—" She trailed off, suddenly aware that the man hadn't said a word. "I'm talking too much, aren't I? I told you I'm bad at this." "Actually," the man finally said, his voice deep and smooth, "I find your honesty refreshing." Naomi blinked. "You do?" "Yes," he said, a small smile forming. "Though I think there's been a misunderstanding." Naomi's heart sank. "Oh God, you're not Jen's friend Mark." Are you? I'm afraid not, he said, looking more amused than annoyed. My name is Adrian Wolf. Naomi felt her face flush hot with embarrassment. Oh no, I am so sorry, I thought. The hostess said, blue suit, dark hair. She started to stand. I should go find my actual date. This is mortifying. Wait, Adrian said, reaching out but not quite touching her arm. Don't go, please. Naomi hesitated, clutching her purse. Why not? I just made a complete fool of myself. Because in the 2 minutes you've been sitting here, you've been more genuine than most people I meet in a month, Adrian said. His expression was earnest, his eyes holding hers. Please, sit. Have a drink with me at least. Something about... His gaze made Naomi slowly lower herself back into the chair. You're not mad. Why would I be mad? My dinner just got considerably more interesting. He signaled a waiter, who appeared instantly at their table. Would you like something to drink? Just water, please, Naomi said automatically, then caught herself. Actually, no. Wine. Red wine. Whatever you recommend. If she was going to make a night of embarrassing herself, she might as well do it with a glass of fancy wine she couldn't afford. As the waiter left, Naomi took her first real look at Adrian Wolf. He was older than she had initially thought, maybe mid-30s with slight crinkles around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he wasn't smiling much now. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his suit clearly expensive, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than her, rent for 6 months. So, Adrian said, leaning forward slightly, you work at a diner and a bookstore and you take care of your sister. Tell me more. Naomi shook her head in disbelief. Seriously? You want to hear about my boring life when I just crashed your dinner? Shouldn't you be meeting someone? A business associate or, I don't know, a supermodel? Adrian laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. I was supposed to meet my chief financial officer to discuss some quarterly reports, but he cancelled. As for supermodels, they tend to be disappointingly focused on Instagram opportunities rather than conversation. The waiter returned with 2 glasses of red wine. Adrian raised his in a small toast. To wrong tables and happy accidents. Naomi couldn't help but smile as she clinked her glass against his. The wine was rich and smooth, probably the best she'd ever tasted. So what do you do, Adrian Wolf, that you have chief financial officers and quarterly reports? I run a company, he said simply. Wolf Enterprises. We primarily focus on sustainable technology and green energy solutions. Naomi nearly choked on her wine. Wolf Enterprises? The Wolf Enterprises that just built that massive solar field outside the city. That's like $1 billion company. Adrian shrugged, looking almost uncomfortable with her recognition. It's just a business. One that I hope is doing some good. In the world. He quickly changed the subject. What kind of books do you like since you work at a bookstore? For the next hour, Naomi found herself engaged in the most comfortable conversation she'd had in years. Adrian asked questions about her life, her dreams, her opinions, and he listened, really listened, to her answers. He laughed at her stories about difficult customers at the diner and nodded thoughtfully when she talked about how she'd put her own education on hold to support Katie after their parents died. You've sacrificed a lot for your sister, Adrian observed as they finished. Their entrees, a pasta dish for Naomi that Adrian had recommended, insisting she try it. It's not a sacrifice when it's family, Naomi said, twirling the last bit of pasta on her fork. Katie's all I have, and she's brilliant. She's going to be an amazing nurse someday. And what about you? What would you be if you could be anything? Adrian asked, his grey eyes intent on her face. Naomi hesitated. It's silly. I doubt that. I've always wanted to open my own bookstore cafe, she admitted. A place where people could get good coffee, great books, and just belong, you know? Somewhere that feels like home even when you're not at home. Adrian nodded slowly. That doesn't sound silly at all, it sounds wonderful. Before Naomi could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A man in a blue suit was arguing with the hostess, gesturing around the restaurant. With a sinking feeling, Naomi realized it had to be Mark, her actual blind date, who had apparently been waiting for her all this time. Oh no, she groaned, shrinking in her seat. I think that's my real date. Adrian followed her gaze, then looked back at Naomi with an unreadable expression. Would you like to meet him? I can call the hostess over. Naomi bit her lip, looking from the angry man at the entrance to Adrian's calm face across from her. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. No, she said finally. No, I don't think I would. A slow smile spread across Adrian's face. Good answer. The hostess was now leading Mark through the restaurant, obviously looking for someone. Naomi ducked her head. But he's going to see me. This is going to be so awkward. Without hesitation, Adrian stood, took off his suit jacket and held it out to Naomi. Put this on and head to the restrooms. I'll handle this. Grateful, Naomi slipped on his jacket, which smelled faintly of expensive cologne, and hurried toward the back of the restaurant. From the hallway outside the restrooms, she watched as Mark approached Adrian's table. She couldn't hear what was said, but Adrian stood, shook Mark's hand and gestured to the empty chair. Within minutes, Mark was leaving the restaurant, and Adrian was signaling for the check. When Naomi returned to the table, Adrian was waiting for her with a mischievous glint in his eye. Crisis averted. I told him his date had called the restaurant to cancel because of an emergency, and that I'd been asked to let him know if he arrived. You lied for me? Naomi asked, slipping off his jacket and handing it back, their fingers brushing momentarily. I prefer to think of it as facilitating a more pleasant evening for everyone involved, Adrian said, helping her with her chair. Would you like dessert before I take you home? Naomi's eyes widened. Take me home? I can take the bus. It's fine. At this hour? Absolutely not. I have a car and driver waiting. He looked at her intently. Unless you'd prefer I didn't know where you live, which is completely understandable. Naomi thought about it. By all logic, she shouldn't get into a car with a man she'd just met, even if he was the most charming, attentive man she'd ever encountered. But something about Adrian Wolf made her feel safe. Tiramisu, she said finally. If we're having dessert, it has to be tiramisu. Adrian's smile was warm. Excellent choice. By the time they finished dessert, Naomi felt as if she'd known Adrian for years. He told her about growing up as the son of a demanding business tycoon, about taking over Wolf Enterprises after his father's death and steering it in a more ethical direction, about his love of classical music and old films. He made her laugh, with stories about disastrous business meetings, and touched her heart when he spoke about his charitable foundation that provided scholarships to underprivileged students. When they finally left the restaurant, a sleek black car was waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door for them, and Adrian gestured for Naomi to enter first. This has been the strangest night, Naomi said, as the car pulled away from Bellini's. I came for a blind date with someone else and ended up having dinner with a billionaire CEO. Adrian chuckled. And I came for a boring business dinner and ended up with the most refreshingly honest woman I've met in years. He turned to look at her in the dim light of the car. I'd like to see you again, Naomi. Properly this time, no mistaken identities. Naomi's heart raced. Why? I mean, you could date anyone. Models, actresses, business executives who actually understand what you do. Because when you talk about your sister, your eyes light up, Adrian said quietly. Because you dream of creating a place where people can belong. Because you didn't know who I was when you sat down at my table, and when you found out, you treated me exactly the same. The car stopped in front of Naomi's apartment building, a shabby structure that looked even worse next to the luxury vehicle. Adrian walked her to the entrance, standing close but not touching her. I had a wonderful time tonight, he said. So did I, Naomi admitted. But Adrian, I'm not sure this is a good idea. We're from completely different worlds. Maybe, he agreed, or maybe we're exactly where we're supposed to be. He took out his business card and pressed it into her hand. My personal number is on the back. Call me, text me, whatever you're comfortable with, no pressure. Naomi looked down at the card, then back up at Adrian. I'm going to regret it if I don't, aren't I? I know I would, he said softly. In a moment of courage, Naomi stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Good night, Adrian Wolf. Good night, Naomi Ellis, he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. Thank you for sitting at the wrong table tonight. As she watched him walk back to his car, Naomi clutched his business card tightly in her hand. Something told her that her life had just changed irrevocably, all because of one simple mistake. Inside her apartment, Katie was waiting on the couch, eyes wide with excitement. "Well, how was it? What was he like?" Naomi leaned against the door, a dreamy smile on her face. "It wasn't at all what I expected." "I knew it. Jen was right," Katie squealed. "Tell me everything." "It's a long story," Naomi said, thinking of Adrian's smile, his attentiveness, the way he'd looked at her as if she was someone special. "But I think I might have just met someone amazing." As she fell asleep that night, Naomi couldn't help wondering if Adrian would really want to see her again, or if tonight had been just a pleasant diversion for a bored billionaire. One thing was certain, she'd never look at a wrong table the same way again. 3 days had passed since the night at Bellini's, and Naomi still hadn't called Adrian. His business card sat on her nightstand, and she found herself staring at it every morning before work and every night before bed. Each time she picked up her phone, something stopped her. Doubt, insecurity, the nagging feeling that men like Adrian Wolf didn't end up with women like her. "You're being ridiculous," Katie said on Monday evening as they ate leftover Chinese food in their tiny kitchen. "Just call him already." "It's not that simple," Naomi argued, pushing a piece of broccoli around her plate. "He's a billionaire, Katie." "A billionaire? He runs one of the biggest companies in the country." "So what? He gave you his number, didn't he? That means he wants to hear from you." "Or he was just being polite," Naomi countered. "Maybe he gives his card to everyone." Katie rolled her eyes. Did he seem like the type of guy who wastes his time being polite to people he's not interested in? Before Naomi could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jen. "Mark is furious. Where were you Friday night?" "He waited for an hour," Naomi groaned. "Great. Now I have to explain to Jen why I stood up her friend." "Tell her the truth," Katie suggested with a smirk, "that you found someone better." "I didn't find anyone. It was a mistake," Naomi insisted, though her cheeks flushed at the memory of Adrian's grey eyes, focused intently on her face as she talked. "A happy mistake," Katie teased. "Come on, Naomi. When was the last time you were excited about a guy? High school?" "I don't have time for this," Naomi said, standing up and grabbing her uniform. "I have the night shift at the diner." "Running away doesn't solve anything," Katie called after her as Naomi headed for the door. The evening rush at Joe's diner was in full swing when Naomi arrived. She tied her apron around her waist and jumped right in, taking orders and delivering plates of comfort food to the regular customers. The familiar routine helped clear her mind, and for a few hours she didn't think about Adrian Wolf or his business card, or the way his laugh had made her stomach flutter. It was nearly 10 p.m., and the crowd had thinned out considerably when the bell above the door chimed. Naomi was wiping down a table with her back to the entrance. "Be right with you," she called over her shoulder. "Sit anywhere you'd like." "I was hoping you might recommend a table," said a familiar, deep voice. "I seem to have good luck when someone else chooses for me." Naomi spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. Adrian Wolf stood just inside the door, looking impossibly handsome in dark jeans and a simple grey sweater that matched his eyes. He looked different without the suit, more approachable, but no, less commanding. "Adrian," she said, hating how breathless she sounded, "what are you doing here?" He stepped closer, a slight smile on his face. "Well, since you didn't call me, I thought I'd see if the mountain would come to Mohammed." "How did you find me?" "You mentioned you worked at a diner. There aren't that many in this part of town," he explained. "I tried 2 others before this one." Naomi was stunned. "You've been going from diner to diner looking for me?" "I have," he admitted, without a trace of embarrassment. "And now I'd like a cup of coffee and maybe some pie if you have it." Still processing his unexpected appearance, Naomi led him to a booth by the window. "We have apple and cherry." "Apple, please," Adrian said, watching her with those intense eyes. "And whatever you recommend to go with it." "Ice cream," Naomi said automatically. "Vanilla ice cream with warm apple pie is the only way." "Then that's what I'll have." As Naomi walked to the kitchen to place his order, she could feel her co-worker Darlene's eyes boring into her back. "Who is that?" Darlene whispered when Naomi reached the counter. "He looks like he walked out of a magazine." "Just a customer," Naomi said, trying to sound casual. Honey, men who look like that don't just show up at Joe's diner at 10 p.m. on a Monday unless they're looking for something or someone, Darlene said knowingly. When Naomi returned with Adrian's coffee, he was looking at his phone, his brow furrowed. Problem? She asked as she set the mug down. He looked up, his expression clearing. Nothing that can't wait. He put the phone away and gave her his full attention. So, Naomi Ellis, who works at a diner and a bookstore, why didn't you call me? Naomi fidgeted with her order pad. I wasn't sure if you really meant it. I don't make offers I don't mean, Adrian said simply. I just thought, after you had time to think about it, you might realize we don't have much in common. Adrian leaned forward. Is that what you think? Because I've spent the last 3 days remembering our conversation and thinking we have quite a lot in common. Like what? Naomi challenged. We both value family. We both want to make a difference, just in different ways. We both appreciate good food, good books, and good conversation. He paused. And we both felt something special Friday night. Before Naomi could respond, Darlene appeared with Adrian's pie and ice cream. Here you go, sugar, she said with a wink at Naomi. Anything else you need, you just holler. When she was gone, Adrian picked up his fork and took a bite of the pie. You were right. The ice cream makes it perfect. It's just pie, Naomi said, still trying to process the fact that this man had spent his evening searching for her. It's never just pie, Adrian countered. It's comfort, tradition, a reminder of simpler times. Despite herself, Naomi smiled. Are you always this philosophical about dessert? Only when I'm trying to impress a beautiful woman who won't call. Me, he said, his eyes twinkling. Naomi felt her resolve weakening. Adrian, even if we do have some things in common, our lives are completely different. You run a billion-dollar company. I work 2 jobs just to make rent. Those are circumstances, not character, Adrian said. Circumstances can change. Who we are is what matters. And who are we? Naomi asked quietly. I'm a man who hasn't felt genuinely interested in anyone in a very long time, Adrian said, his voice equally soft, until a woman sat down at my table by mistake and showed me what I've been missing. And you're a woman who deserves more than she allows herself to want. The diner had emptied out, and even Darlene was busying herself in the back, giving them privacy. Naomi sat down across from Adrian, her heart racing. I get off at midnight, she said finally. Adrian's smile was warm. I'll wait. And he did. For the next 2 hours, Adrian sat in that booth answering emails on his phone and occasionally looking up to catch Naomi's eye as she finished her shift. When midnight came, he paid his bill, leaving a tip that made Darlene gasp, and waited by the door while Naomi changed out of her uniform. Can I give you a ride home? He asked when she emerged. Actually, I usually walk, Naomi said. It's not far and I like the fresh air after being inside all night. Then I'll walk with you, Adrian said, falling into step beside her as they left the diner. The night was cool but pleasant, with a half moon illuminating the quiet streets. For a few blocks they walked in comfortable silence, their arms occasionally brushing against each other. So tell me, Naomi said finally, what does a billionaire CEO do on a Monday night when he's not tracking down waitresses in diners? Adrian laughed. Usually, endless paperwork, conference calls with overseas partners, or charity events that require smiling at people I barely know. While they ask for money. Sounds glamorous, Naomi teased. About as glamorous as refilling ketchup bottles and mopping floors, he returned with a smile. Touché. They reached a small park, and Naomi led them along the path that cut through it, her usual shortcut home. I've been thinking about your bookstore cafe idea, Adrian said as they walked beneath the trees. It's a good concept. The right location, the right atmosphere. It could be very successful. Maybe someday, Naomi said with a shrug, when Katie finishes school and I've saved enough. Why wait? Adrian asked. There are small business loans, investors. I'm not looking for a handout, Adrian, Naomi interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. He stopped, looking at her with surprise. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Naomi turned to face him. We've known each other for what, 4 hours total? And you're already thinking about how you can fix my life with your money. That's not fair, Adrian said quietly. I'm interested in your dream because I'm interested in you. I'd react the same way if you were a fellow CEO or if you worked 3 jobs instead of 2. Naomi sighed, running a hand through her hair. I'm sorry, I'm just sensitive about this. People hear waitress and think needs help or looking for a way out. Is that what you think I think? Adrian asked, stepping closer. I don't know what to think, Naomi admitted. This whole situation is surreal. Men like you don't chase after women like me. Maybe they should, Adrian said, his eyes never leaving hers. Maybe we need more women like you to remind us what matters. He was standing very close now, and Naomi could smell his cologne, the same scent that had lingered on his jacket when she'd borrowed it at the restaurant. Without conscious thought, she swayed toward him. Naomi, he said softly, may I kiss you? Her answer was to rise up on her tiptoes and press her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when Adrian's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer, it deepened into something that made Naomi's knees weak. His lips were warm and sure against hers, and she found herself clinging to his shoulders, lost in the sensation. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since you walked out of Bellini's. Me too, Naomi confessed, her heart pounding. The rest of the walk to her apartment building passed in a blur of stolen kisses and held hands. When they reached her door, Adrian pulled her close for one more lingering kiss. Have dinner with me tomorrow, he said. A real date this time. No mistaken identities. Naomi smiled. Where? Anywhere you want. Surprise me, she said, feeling bold and reckless and happier than she had in years. Adrian's answering smile was dazzling. I will. Good night, Naomi Ellis. Good night, Adrian Wolfe. She watched him walk away, unable to stop smiling, before letting herself into the apartment. To her surprise, Katie was still up, sitting on the couch with a textbook. You're late, Katie said, then noticed Naomi's flushed cheeks and bright eyes. And you look different. What happened? He found me, Naomi said, leaning against the dance just as she had after their first meeting. Adrian, he came to the diner. Katie's eyes widened. The billionaire came looking for you at Joe's. That's straight out of a movie. It doesn't feel real, Naomi admitted, sinking onto the couch. Beside her sister. Men like him don't end up with women like me. Why not? Katie challenged. You're smart, kind, hardworking, and pretty. Why shouldn't he want you? Because his world is so different from ours, Naomi said, gesturing around their modest apartment. His watch probably costs more than everything we own. So? Money isn't everything, Katie insisted. If he makes you happy, that's what matters. The next day, Naomi could barely focus during her shift at the bookstore. Adrian had texted her that morning, confirming their date for 7 p.m. and asking for her address so his driver could pick her up. With each passing hour, her excitement mixed with anxiety. What was she getting herself into? By the time she got home to prepare, Naomi was a bundle of nerves. She tried on every decent outfit she owned, finally settling on a simple black dress that Katie insisted looked classy and sexy at the same time. Where do you think he's taking you? Katie asked as she helped Naomi with her hair. I have no idea, Naomi admitted. I told him to surprise me. At precisely 7 p.m., there was a knock at their door. When Naomi opened it, expecting to see Adrian's driver, she was stunned to find Adrian himself standing there holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. You're here, she said, stating the obvious. I thought you were sending a car. I wanted to pick you up personally, Adrian said, his eyes taking in her appearance appreciatively. You look beautiful, Naomi blushed. Thank you, you look nice too. It was an understatement. In his tailored pants and crisp shirt, Adrian was breathtakingly handsome. Katie appeared behind Naomi. So, you're the famous Adrian Wolfe, she said, looking him up and down. Naomi didn't mention how tall you are. Katie, Naomi hissed, embarrassed, but Adrian just laughed and extended his hand to her sister. And you must be Katie. Naomi speaks very highly of you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Katie shook his hand, her eyebrows raised in surprise at his warmth. You too. So, Where are you taking my sister tonight? That's a surprise, Adrian said with a wink, but I promise to have her home at a reasonable hour. No rush, Katie said, ignoring Naomi's mortified expression. She deserves a night out. As they left the apartment, Naomi expected to see Adrian's sleek car waiting at the curb. Instead, there was a vintage motorcycle parked there, gleaming under the streetlights. Is that yours? Naomi asked, incredulous. It is, Adrian confirmed. I hope you don't mind. The weather's perfect and I thought it might be fun, but if you'd prefer the car, my driver is on standby. Naomi looked at the motorcycle, then at Adrian's hopeful expression. No, this is perfect. I've never been on one before. Adrian's face lit up as he handed her a helmet. There's a first time for everything. The feeling of wrapping her arms around Adrian's waist as they wove through the city streets was exhilarating. Naomi felt free, alive, all her worries temporarily forgotten as the wind rushed past them. She had no idea where they were going, but for once, she wasn't anxious about the unknown. She was embracing it. When they finally stopped, Naomi was surprised to find themselves at the waterfront, in front of an old warehouse with string lights illuminating its entrance. What is this place? She asked, as Adrian helped her off the motorcycle. The best kept secret in the city, Adrian said, taking her hand and leading her inside. The warehouse had been converted into an indoor market, with dozens of small food stalls offering cuisine from around the world. The air was filled with delicious smells, and strains of live music floated from a small stage in the corner. I thought we'd do something different, Adrian explained. A little food tour. We can try anything that looks good. Listen to the music, just be. Naomi squeezed his hand, touched by the thought he'd put into their date. It's perfect. For the next few hours, they wandered from stall to stall, sampling Korean dumplings, Ethiopian injera, Italian gelato, and more. They sat at communal tables, talking and laughing with strangers, who soon felt like friends. Adrian was different here, more relaxed, more playful, his public persona set aside. No one recognizes you, Naomi observed as they shared a plate of Spanish tapas. That's why I love this place, Adrian admitted. Here, I'm just a guy on a date with a beautiful woman, not Adrian Wolf, CEO. Is that hard? Being recognized everywhere? Adrian considered the question. It can be exhausting. Everyone wants something. A job, an investment, a donation, a photo for social media. There are very few people in my life who see me as just me. Is that why you were eating alone at Bellini's? Naomi asked softly. Partly, Adrian acknowledged. Though I'm glad I was. Otherwise, a certain someone might have sat at the right table, and I never would have met her. As the evening wore on, Naomi found herself falling deeper under Adrian's spell. He was attentive, genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions, and seemed completely unconcerned with the differences in their lifestyles. When he took her hand or brushed a strand of hair from her face, the butterflies in her stomach took flight. Later, they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. Adrian had his arm around her shoulders, and Naomi leaned into him, savoring his warmth. Thank you for tonight, she said. I never would have found this place on my own. Thank you for giving me a chance, Adrian replied, for seeing beyond the name and the company. I didn't know who you were when I sat down, Naomi reminded him with a smile. Exactly, Adrian said, turning to face her. And that's what makes you special, Naomi Ellis. You saw me before you knew what you were supposed to see. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her under the moonlight, a kiss that promised more to come. Naomi melted into him, all her doubts temporarily silenced by the rightness of being in his arms. But as they drove back to her apartment later that night, reality began to creep back in. Tomorrow, Adrian would return to his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions, while she would pour coffee at the diner and stack books at the store. How long could this fairy tale last before the differences between them became too much to ignore? You're quiet, Adrian observed, as they pulled up in front of her building. Just thinking, Naomi said, climbing off the motorcycle and removing her helmet. About how this ends, she admitted, her honesty getting the better of her. About what happens when the novelty wears off and you realize I don't fit into your world. Adrian took off his own helmet and looked at her seriously. "Who says, you have to fit into my world? Maybe I want to fit into yours. Or maybe we create a new world together." "Is that really possible?" Naomi asked, wanting desperately to believe him. "I don't know," Adrian said honestly, "but I'd like to find out if you would." He leaned down and kissed her again, a kiss full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Naomi found herself nodding. "I'd like that too," she whispered. As she watched him drive away, Naomi touched her lips, still tingling from his kiss. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she was excited to find out. Upstairs, Katie was waiting with eager eyes and a million questions. But as Naomi described the evening, the motorcycle, the market, the waterfront, she noticed a piece of mail on the coffee table, stamped with an official-looking seal. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. Katie's expression fell. "It came today. It's from the college, my scholarship. They're cutting it for next semester. Budget issues, they say." Naomi's heart sank. "How much?" "Half," Katie said miserably. "I don't know how we're going to make up the difference. I could try to find a job, but with my class schedule—" "No," Naomi interrupted firmly. "You focus on school. I'll figure something out. I can pick up more shifts at the diner, maybe ask for more hours at the bookstore." "You already work yourself to exhaustion," Katie protested. "This isn't fair to you." "Life isn't fair," Naomi said, thinking of her wonderful evening with Adrian and the harsh reality that had been waiting at home. "But we'll make it work. We always do." That night, as she lay in bed, Naomi's thoughts were a jumble of contradictions. On one hand, she just had the most magical date of her life with a man who made her feel special and seen. On the other, she was facing yet another financial challenge that would make it even harder to find time for a relationship, especially one with a man whose life was complicated in ways she could barely imagine. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Adrian. "Thank you for a perfect evening. Sweet dreams, Naomi." She hugged the phone to her chest, torn between joy and anxiety. The practical part of her knew she should end this now, before either of them got hurt. But her heart, which had been dormant for so long, was finally awakening, reaching toward the light Adrian had brought into her life. "Sweet dreams," she texted back, making a decision. She would take this one day at a time, savoring whatever happiness Adrian brought her way, for however long it lasted. Because even if their story didn't have a fairy tale ending, Naomi was beginning to believe that some wrong turns might be worth taking after all. Over the next few weeks, Naomi and Adrian settled into a rhythm that somehow worked, despite their drastically different schedules and lifestyles. Adrian would surprise her at the diner with late-night visits after board meetings. Naomi would text him during her breaks at the bookstore, sharing funny customer stories that made him laugh during tense negotiations. On her days off, Adrian would whisk her away on his motorcycle to hidden gems around the city, a tucked-away art gallery, a family-owned Italian restaurant where the owner greeted him by name, a secluded spot in the park where they could watch the sunset without interruption. It was during one of these peaceful moments, with Naomi's head resting on Adrian's shoulder as they sat on a park bench, that he first brought up the subject of his work world. "There's a charity gala next Saturday," he said, his fingers absently playing with a strand of her hair. "For the Wolf Foundation. Would you come with me?" Naomi tensed slightly. So far, they had carefully kept their relationship in neutral territory, places where Adrian was just a man, not a billionaire CEO, and where Naomi could forget about the vast differences in their circumstances. "A gala," she repeated. "With all your business associates and society people?" "Yes," Adrian said simply. "I'd like them to meet you." "Adrian, I wouldn't know how to act at something like that. I don't have anything to wear. I wouldn't know which fork to use." He turned to look at her, his expression serious. "You'd act like yourself because that's who I want them to meet. As for the dress, I'd be happy to—" "No," Naomi interrupted firmly. "You're not buying me a dress," Adrian frowned. "Why not? It would be my pleasure." "Because I'm not a charity." "Case," Naomi said, sitting up straight. "I won't be the poor waitress you dressed up for the ball." "That's not how I see you at all," Adrian protested. "Maybe not. But that's how they'll see me, Naomi said, and I won't give them the satisfaction of knowing you had to buy my outfit. Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering her words. You're right, he said finally. I'm sorry, I didn't think about how it would look. Naomi softened, taking his hand. I know you didn't. And I appreciate you wanting to include me in your life. But maybe we're not ready for the gala circuit. Yet, what if we try something smaller first, Adrian suggested. Dinner at my place this weekend, just us. The thought of seeing Adrian's home, which she imagined was some kind of luxurious penthouse or mansion, made Naomi equally nervous, but she couldn't keep avoiding his world forever if they were going to give this relationship a real chance. Okay, she agreed. Dinner at your place. Adrian's face lit up. Saturday at 7, I'll cook. You cook? Naomi asked, surprised. There's a lot you still don't know about me, Naomi Ellis, Adrian said with a mysterious smile. That's the fun part of dating, discovering each other bit by bit. As they walked back to where Adrian had parked his motorcycle, Naomi's phone rang. Seeing Katie's name on the screen, she answered quickly. Katie, is everything okay? I'm at the hospital. Katie's voice trembled on the other end. It's Mrs. Winters from 3B. She fell on the stairs. I found her when I was coming home from class. The ambulance just brought her in. I'll be right there, Naomi promised, ending the call and turning to Adrian. I have to go. Our elderly neighbor fell and she's at the hospital. Katie's with her. But Mrs. Winters doesn't have any family. Without hesitation, Adrian said, I'll take you. Which hospital? Mercy General. But you don't have to. I want to, Adrian said firmly, already handing her a helmet. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. Adrian's presence seemed to make everything move faster. Whether it was his commanding demeanor or simply the expensive watch and clothes that signaled wealth and influence, Naomi wasn't sure. But soon they were being directed to the emergency room where Katie sat beside a frail woman with white hair. Naomi, thank goodness, Katie said, standing to hug her sister. She nodded politely to Adrian, whom she'd met several times now. Mrs. Winters has a broken hip. They're prepping her for surgery. Oh, Mrs. Winters, Naomi said, taking the elderly woman's hand. I'm so sorry this happened. These old bones, Mrs. Winters said with a weak smile. They don't work like they used to. She looked curiously at Adrian. And who is this handsome young man? This is Adrian, my... Naomi hesitated, not sure what to call him. Her boyfriend, Adrian supplied smoothly, stepping forward to gently shake Mrs. Winters' hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. Boyfriend. The word sent a flutter through Naomi's chest. They hadn't officially defined their relationship, but hearing Adrian say it so naturally made her smile despite the circumstances. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Winters, we're ready to take you up to surgery now, but I need to discuss the matter of payment. It seems your insurance will only cover part of the procedure, and there will be rehabilitation costs afterward. Mrs. Winters' face fell. I don't have much savings. Will they send me home without the surgery? No, we'll perform the surgery, the doctor assured her. But we'll need to discuss payment plans. I'll handle it, Adrian said quietly to Naomi. All of it. Adrian, no, Naomi whispered back. That's too much. It's nothing to me, he insisted. And it would mean everything to her. Naomi looked at Mrs. Winters' worried face and felt torn. Her pride wanted to refuse Adrian's help, but this wasn't about her. It was about a sweet elderly woman who had always been kind to her and Katie, who baked them cookies at Christmas and kept an eye on their apartment when they were away. Okay, Naomi said finally, but I want to pay you back somehow. We'll figure something out, Adrian promised with a wink that made her blush. After Adrian spoke quietly with the doctor and made arrangements for Mrs. Winters' care, the three of them settled into the waiting room as the surgery proceeded. That was incredibly generous, Katie said to Adrian when Naomi stepped away to get coffee. You barely know Mrs. Winters. But she matters to Naomi, so she matters to me, Adrian said simply. Katie studied him thoughtfully. You really care about my sister, don't you? More than I expected to, Adrian admitted. She's different, real. In my world, that's rare and precious. She's worried, you know, Katie confided, that she doesn't fit into your life, that eventually You'll get tired of slumming it with a waitress." Adrian frowned. "Is that what she thinks? That I'm slumming it?" "Not in those words," Katie clarified, "but Naomi has always been the one taking care of everyone else. She put her dreams on hold for me after our parents died. She works herself to exhaustion to make sure I can stay in school. She doesn't know how to let someone take care of her for a change." Adrian's expression softened. "Thank you for telling me this. I'll keep it in mind." When Naomi returned with coffee for all of them, she found Adrian and Katie laughing together, like old friends. The sight warmed her heart even as it scared her a little. The more intertwined their lives became, the more it would hurt when, if, things didn't work out. After several hours, the doctor returned with good news. Mrs. Winter's surgery had been successful. She would need to stay in the hospital for a few days, then move to a rehabilitation facility for several weeks. "I'll drive you both home," Adrian offered when they were ready to leave. "It's late." Back at Naomi's apartment building, Adrian walked them to their door. Before saying goodnight, he pulled Naomi aside. "About Saturday," he said, "I'd still like you to come to dinner, but I was thinking, why don't you bring Katie too? And we could invite Mrs. Winters when she's recovered. Make it a proper dinner." "Party?" Naomi looked at him in surprise. "You want to have dinner with my sister and my elderly neighbor?" "I want to know the people who matter to you," Adrian said earnestly. "All of them." Overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness, Naomi rose up and kissed him deeply. "Thank you," she whispered against his lips, "for everything tonight." "See you Saturday," Adrian replied with a smile. "Both of you." As promised, Saturday evening found Naomi and Katie standing outside a sleek high-rise in the most expensive part of the city. The doorman greeted them by name. Adrian had called ahead and escorted them to a private elevator that required a key card. "This is insane," Katie whispered as they ascended to the top floor. "He lives in the penthouse. Of course he lives in the penthouse." "Be nice," Naomi warned, though she was equally intimidated. She had spent hours deciding what to wear, finally settling on a simple blue dress she'd bought on sale last year for a job interview. It was the nicest thing she owned, but she still felt underdressed for the occasion. The elevator opened directly into a stunning apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. The space was modern and elegant, but not ostentatious. Lots of clean lines, comfortable-looking furniture, and tasteful art on the walls. And there was Adrian coming to greet them with a smile, wearing jeans and a casual button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking completely at home and utterly handsome. "Welcome," he said, kissing Naomi lightly and giving Katie a quick hug. "I hope you found the place okay." The giant building, with your name on it, was a pretty good clue, Katie teased, making Adrian laugh. "Fair point. Can I get you both something to drink? Wine, beer, cocktails?" "Wine would be nice," Naomi said, still taking in the apartment. "This place is beautiful." "Thank you, but it's just a place," Adrian said, pouring 3 glasses of red wine. "Home is about the people, not the square footage or the view." "Says the man with the best view in the city," Katie quipped, accepting her glass. Adrian gave them a brief tour, showing them the main living area, a state-of-the-art kitchen where something delicious was simmering, a home office, and a terrace, with comfortable seating and potted plants. What struck Naomi most was how the apartment, despite its luxury, felt lived in. There were books everywhere, on shelves, on side tables, stacked beside a comfortable reading chair. Family photos sat on the mantel, showing a younger Adrian with who must be his parents, a worn leather jacket hung by the door, and a motorcycle. Helmet sat on a shelf nearby. "I didn't expect so many books," Naomi commented, running her fingers along a shelf of well-worn classics. "My guilty pleasure," Adrian admitted. "I find time to read every night, even if it's just for a few minutes. It keeps me sane." "Naomi too," Katie said. "She always has a book in her bag. Sometimes I think she took the bookstore job just for the employee discount." "Guilty," Naomi laughed. As Adrian excused himself to check on dinner, Katie whispered to Naomi, "He's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know, someone more stuffy, pretentious, but he's just a normal guy who happens to be ridiculously wealthy and hot." Naomi smiled, watching Adrian move confidently around the kitchen. "Yeah, he is. Dinner was lasagna, Homemade, Adrian insisted, from his Italian grandmother's recipe, with a fresh salad and garlic bread. It was delicious, and the conversation flowed easily as they ate. Adrian asked Katie about her nursing studies, showing genuine interest in her classes and career plans. Katie, in turn, shared embarrassing stories about Naomi that had both Adrian and Naomi laughing until tears came to their eyes. "So wait," Adrian said, refilling their wine glasses. "You're telling me that Naomi, my composed, dignified Naomi, once got stuck in a doggy door trying to retrieve a lost shoe?" "I was 12, Naomi protested, "and it was my favorite shoe." "The fire department had to come," Katie added with glee. "They couldn't stop laughing." "I'm never living this down, am I?" Naomi groaned. "Not a chance," Adrian said, taking her hand across the table and squeezing it affectionately. After dinner, they moved to the terrace with cups of coffee and slices, served tiramisu that Adrian swore was almost as good as the one we had at Bellini's. The night air was cool but pleasant, and the city lights spread out below them like a sea of stars. Katie eventually excused herself to use the bathroom, leaving Naomi and Adrian alone for a moment. "Thank you for this," Naomi said softly. "For," including Katie, "for making us feel welcome." "You are welcome, both of you," Adrian said, moving his chair closer to hers. "Naomi, I want you to feel comfortable in my life, in all parts of it. This apartment, my work, everything. I'm trying," Naomi admitted. "It's just a lot to take in. Your world is so different from mine." "Is it?" Adrian asked, gesturing around them. "It's just stuff, Naomi. Bigger, more expensive stuff, but still. Just stuff. What matters are the moments like tonight. Good food, good conversation, being with people I care about." He paused, taking her hand. "Being with you." The intensity in his eyes made Naomi's heart race. "Adrian, I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I want you to know that. I wasn't looking for this, for you. But now that I've found you, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Naomi felt tears prick at her eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "And it terrifies me." "Why?" Adrian asked gently. "Because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to realize that I don't belong here, in this apartment, in your world. For your friends and colleagues to look down on me because I pour coffee for a living." Adrian cupped her face in his hands. "Listen to me. Anyone who would judge you for the work you do isn't someone whose opinion I value. You are smart, kind, hardworking, and beautiful. You've sacrificed your own dreams to take care of your sister. You visit an elderly neighbor in the hospital and bring her magazines and soup. You remember the names of every regular customer at the diner and what they like to order. You have more character and integrity than most of the so-called important people I deal with every day." A tear slipped down Naomi's cheek, and Adrian brushed it away with his thumb. "I see you, Naomi Ellis, all of you, and I love what I see." He leaned in and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and devotion that made Naomi's doubts momentarily fade away. She melted into him, her arms sliding around his neck, her heart full to bursting. The sound of the terrace door sliding open made them break apart. Katie stood there with a knowing smile. "Should I call a cab and leave you two alone?" "Absolutely not," Naomi said, blushing furiously. "We're having family dinner, remember?" The word family hung in the air, carrying more weight than Naomi had intended. But Adrian just smiled, looking pleased. "Exactly. Family dinner. And I think it's time for board games. I have Scrabble, Monopoly, or Cards Against Humanity. Your choice." "Cards Against Humanity," Katie voted immediately. "I want to see if billionaires have a sense of humor." "Challenge accepted," Adrian laughed, leading them back inside. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter and friendly competition. Adrian proved to have a surprisingly wicked sense of humor, winning several rounds with card combinations that left Naomi and Katie in stitches. When it was finally time to leave, Adrian insisted on driving them home himself rather than calling his driver. "I don't get to drive my own car often enough," he said, as he led them to the building's underground garage where a sleek black sports car waited. "Of course you have a Ferrari," Katie said, rolling her eyes but looking impressed nonetheless. Was a gift to myself when the company went public, Adrian admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. A bit indulgent, I know. The drive to their apartment was quick, with Katie asking Adrian about all the car's features from the back seat, while Naomi sat beside him, enjoying the sight of him relaxed and animated as he explained the engine specifications. At their building, Adrian walked them to their door carrying a container of leftover lasagna that he'd insisted they take. After Katie said goodnight and went inside, giving them privacy, Adrian pulled Naomi close. "I meant what I said earlier," he murmured against her hair. "I'm falling in love with you." "I meant it too," Naomi replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "But Adrian, love isn't always enough. We have to be realistic about the differences in our lives. The only difference that matters is how we feel about each other," Adrian insisted. "The rest is logistics, and I've built a billion-dollar company by solving logistical problems." Naomi laughed softly. "So I'm a logistical problem now?" "You're the most beautiful problem I've ever encountered," Adrian said, kissing her gently. "And I intend to solve you thoroughly." "That doesn't even make sense," Naomi protested, but she was smiling. "Love rarely does," Adrian replied. "That's what makes it interesting." With one final kiss, he said goodnight, waiting until she was safely inside before heading back to his car. Naomi leaned against the closed door, her heart full. Maybe, just maybe, this crazy relationship had a chance after all. The next morning, Naomi was just finishing her shift at the diner when her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Check your email when you get home. Exciting news." Curious, Naomi hurried through her usual post-shift cleanup and headed home. When dulce. She checked her email. She found a message from Adrian with the subject line, "A proposition, not that kind." Yet, that made her both laugh and blush. The email contained information about a small storefront for rent in a trendy neighborhood not far from her apartment. It had previously been a cafe that had gone out of business, so all the basic infrastructure was already in place for a food service business. Adrian's note read, "Before you get upset, I'm not buying this for you. But I noticed it's for rent at a reasonable price, and it made me think of your bookstore cafe dream. The owner is an old friend who'd be open to a good business plan rather than just deep pockets. Think about it. No pressure." Attached was a folder of information about the space, including photos, floor plans, and rental terms. It was exactly the kind of place Naomi had always imagined for her dream business. Cozy, with character, in a neighborhood with foot traffic, but not so upscale that it would be intimidating. And the rent, while still a stretch for her current finances, wasn't completely out of reach if she had a solid business plan and some startup capital. As she was going through the information, absorbing the possibilities, Katie came home from class. "What are you looking at? You have a weird expression on your face." "Adrian found this space for rent," Naomi explained, showing Katie the photos. "For my bookstore cafe idea." Katie's eyes widened as she scrolled through the images. "Naomi, it's perfect. Are you going to do it?" "I don't know," Naomi said honestly. "It's still a huge risk. I'd need a loan for startup costs, and if it failed, we'd be in serious trouble financially." "But it's your dream," Katie urged. "And Adrian's just showing you the opportunity, not funding it, so you can't even use that as an excuse." "I know," Naomi sighed. "It's just scary to think about taking that leap." "Everything worth doing is a little scary," Katie said wisely. "And you've put your life on hold for me long enough. Maybe it's time you did something for yourself." Before Naomi could respond, her phone rang. It was the hospital. Mrs. Winters was being discharged to the rehabilitation facility the next day and had asked if Naomi could help pack a few things from her apartment. "Of course," Naomi agreed. "I'll come by this evening." As she hung up, another call came in, this time from the bookstore manager asking if Naomi could cover an extra shift the next day because another employee had called in sick. "Sure, I can do that," Naomi said, mentally rearranging her schedule to accommodate the additional work hours. When she ended that call, Katie was looking at her with concern. "You just agreed to 2 more commitments when you're already working double shifts. When will you make time to even think about this cafe opportunity?" "I'll figure it out," Naomi said, though she wasn't sure how. "Mrs. Winters needs help, and We need the money from the extra bookstore shift. And what about what you need? Katie challenged. When do your dreams get to be a priority? Naomi had no answer for that. As she headed to Mrs. Winter's apartment later that evening, her mind was a jumble of conflicting thoughts. The storefront was perfect. The timing was terrible. She wanted to pursue her dream. She couldn't risk financial stability. Adrian believed in her. She was afraid to fail. Mrs. Winters was waiting for her, sitting in her favorite armchair with a photo album on her lap. Naomi, dear, thank you for coming. I've been going through old memories today. As Naomi helped pack a suitcase with nightgowns, toiletries and other necessities for the rehabilitation facility, Mrs. Winters shared stories from the album: her wedding day, the purchase of her first home, the birth of her children, who now lived far away and visited rarely. You know what I regret most? Mrs. Winters said as Naomi carefully folded a sweater. Not the things I did, but the things I didn't do. The chances I didn't take. The dreams I put aside because they seemed impractical or risky. Naomi paused, struck by the timing of this wisdom. Like what? Oh, I always wanted to open a little flower shop, Mrs. Winters said, wistfully. My husband thought it was a silly idea. Why take the risk when I have a steady job, he'd say. So I never did. And now, looking back, I wonder what might have been. She patted Naomi's hand. Don't make my mistake, dear. Life is too short for what-ifs. On her way home, Naomi's phone rang again. It was Adrian. Did you see the email? He asked without preamble. I did, Naomi confirmed. The space is beautiful. But, Adrian prompted, sensing her hesitation. But it's not the right time, Naomi said, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. I have too many responsibilities. Katie's tuition, Mrs. Winters needing help, my jobs. Naomi, Adrian interrupted gently, when will it be the right time? Next year? 5 years from now? Sometimes we have to make it the right time. That's easy for you to say, Naomi retorted more sharply than she intended. You've never had to worry about making rent or choosing between groceries and electric bills. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You're right, Adrian said finally. I haven't, and I won't pretend to understand exactly what that's like. But I do understand that dreams matter, that you matter, and that sometimes the biggest obstacle to our happiness is our own fear. Naomi sighed, knowing he had a point. I'll think about it. Really think about it. That's all I can promise right now. That's all I'm asking, Adrian said. Well, that and dinner tomorrow night, my place again? Despite her turmoil, Naomi smiled. Your place again. But when she arrived at Adrian's penthouse the next evening, exhausted from her double shift, she found not the intimate dinner she'd expected, but a small gathering of people, a middle-aged couple, a young man in a well-tailored suit, and a woman about Naomi's age in designer clothing. Surprise, Adrian said, kissing her cheek as she stood frozen in the entryway. I want you to meet some people. Naomi's heart sank as she realized what was happening. These were Adrian's friends, his wealthy, sophisticated friends, who were now looking at her with curious expressions. Adrian, she whispered, panic rising in her chest, you didn't tell me there would be other people here. I wanted to surprise you, he said, seeming not to notice her distress. Come, let me introduce you. As Adrian led her into the room, Naomi felt as if she were walking to her own execution. She was wearing simple jeans and a blouse, not realizing she'd need to dress up. Her hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail after her long day, and she hadn't had time to apply more than minimal makeup. Everyone, this is Naomi Ellis, Adrian announced proudly. Naomi, these are some of my closest friends, James and Patricia. Chen, James is my company's chief legal counsel, Maxwell Rothstein, our marketing director, and Eliza Donovan, who runs our charitable foundation. Naomi managed a weak smile as they all greeted her with varying degrees of warmth. Patricia Chen immediately took her arm and led her to the couch. Adrian has told us so much about you, Patricia said kindly. He says you're quite the reader. What are you enjoying these days? The next hour was a blur as Naomi tried to keep up with conversations about books, where she felt reasonably confident, current events, where she was less so, and the latest charity gala, where she was completely lost. Adrian circulated among his guests, occasionally catching her eye with an encouraging smile, seemingly oblivious to her discomfort. It was Maxwell who finally asked the dreaded question, "So, Naomi, what do you do?" The room quieted, everyone turning to hear her answer. "I work at a diner and a bookstore," Naomi said, lifting her chin slightly, determined not to be ashamed of her honest work. "How fascinating," Eliza said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "Is that a long-term career choice?" "Actually," Adrian cut in smoothly, "Naomi has a brilliant business concept for a bookstore cafe. She's considering a space in the Summit District." All eyes turned to Naomi, who felt completely blindsided. She hadn't agreed to pursue the storefront, let alone discuss it with Adrian's inner circle. "It's just an idea," she mumbled, shooting Adrian a look that he completely missed as he launched into an enthusiastic description of her concept, talking about profit margins and target demographics, as if they'd discussed it in detail. "You know, I have a contact in small business. Lending," James offered. "I'd be happy to introduce you. And the foundation might be interested in sponsoring a reading program," Eliza added, suddenly more engaged. "If you had a community focus." Naomi felt the room spinning around her. They were planning her future, reshaping her dream into something she barely recognized, all without asking if this was what she wanted. "Excuse me," she said abruptly, standing up. "I need some air." She hurried out to the terrace, gripping the railing, as she took deep breaths of the cool night air. A few minutes later, she heard the door slide open behind her. "Naomi," Adrian approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," Naomi said, turning to face him. "How could you do this to me?" Adrian looked genuinely confused. "Do what? Introduce you to my friends?" "Ambush me," Naomi exploded. "I wasn't prepared for this. I'm not dressed for it. And I certainly wasn't ready to have my personal dreams dissected by strangers." "They're not strangers, they're my friends," Adrian protested. "And they were being supportive." "No, they were taking over. Just like you're trying to take over." Naomi's voice broke with emotion. "I never agreed to pursue that storefront. It was just an idea we were discussing. But you decided it was happening and started making plans without me." Adrian's expression shifted from confusion to realization. "Naomi, I wasn't trying to control anything. I just got excited about the possibilities. About helping you achieve your dream. But it's my dream, Adrian. Mine to pursue in my own way, on my own timeline." Tears of frustration welled in her eyes. "Do you have any idea how it feels to sit there in my work clothes, exhausted after a double shift, while your perfect friends in their perfect outfits plan out my future, as if I'm a charity case they're taking on?" "That's not how they see you," Adrian insisted. "That's not how I see you." "Isn't it?" Naomi asked quietly. "Be honest, Adrian. Part of what attracts you to me is that I'm a project, someone you can rescue from her ordinary life. It makes you feel good to think you can solve all my problems." Adrian's face paled. "That's not true. I love you for who you are, not because I want to change you." "Then why are you trying so hard to change my circumstances, to push me into decisions I'm not ready to make, to integrate me into your world without considering if I'm ready for it?" Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his posture. "Because I want to share everything with you, Naomi. My home, my friends, my resources, everything I have. Is that so wrong?" "No," Naomi said softly. "What's wrong is not asking me if that's what I want, or at what pace I want it." They stood in tense silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling below them, seemingly a world away from the conflict on the terrace. "I need to go," Naomi said finally. "I can't do this right now." "Naomi, please." Adrian reached for her hand. "Don't leave like this. We can work this out." "I need time to think," Naomi insisted, pulling away. "This is all happening too fast. Your world is swallowing mine, and I'm losing myself in it." Adrian's eyes reflected hurt and confusion. "That was never my intention." "I know," Naomi acknowledged. "But intention and impact are different things." She walked back inside, making brief apologies to Adrian's bewildered guests, and left the apartment. In the elevator, she finally let the tears fall freely. She loved Adrian. She was sure of that now. But loving him and finding a way to bridge their two worlds were entirely different challenges. As the elevator doors opened on the ground floor, Naomi steeled herself for the journey home, her heart heavy with the fear that she'd just walked away from the best thing that had ever happened to her, and the equally powerful fear that staying would mean losing herself entirely. For 3 days, Naomi avoided Adrian's calls and texts. She needed space to think, to figure out if their relationship could actually work or if they were just delaying the inevitable heartbreak. Katie watched her sister with concern as Naomi moved through her days like a zombie, going to work, coming, home, barely eating or sleeping. "You need to talk to him," Katie finally said on the 4th morning as Naomi stared blankly at her untouched coffee. "This isn't solving anything." "I don't know what to say," Naomi admitted. "I love him, Katie, but I don't know if love is enough to bridge our differences. Maybe you should stop focusing on the differences and start looking at what you have in common," Katie suggested gently. Naomi's phone buzzed with another text from Adrian. "Please, Naomi, just talk to me, I miss you." Her heart ached at the simple message. She missed him too, his smile, his laugh, the way he listened so intently when she spoke, as if her words were the most important thing in the world. "I'll think about it," she promised Katie before heading out for her morning shift at the diner. The diner was unusually busy that day. A pipe had burst in another restaurant down the street, sending their regular customers scrambling for an alternative breakfast spot. Naomi moved on autopilot, taking orders, serving food, refilling coffee cups. Her mind was elsewhere, still, turning over the situation with Adrian when the bell above the door chimed. She turned to greet the new customer and froze. It wasn't Adrian standing in the doorway, it was Eliza Donovan, the polished woman who ran Adrian's charitable foundation. She was dressed far more casually than she had been at Adrian's apartment, in jeans and a simple blouse, but she still looked impossibly elegant. Naomi approached her table warily. "Welcome to Joe's. What can I get you?" Eliza looked up with a small smile. "Just coffee, please, and a few minutes of your time when you're not too busy." Naomi nodded stiffly and went to fetch the coffee. When she returned, the morning rush had died down somewhat, so she hesitantly slid into the seat across from Eliza. "Adrian didn't send me," Eliza said immediately, as if reading Naomi's mind. "He doesn't even know I'm here." "Then why are you?" Naomi asked. Eliza stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "Because I was you once, and I thought you might need someone to talk to who understands." Naomi blinked in surprise. "You were what?" "Working class, struggling to make ends meet." Eliza smiled at Naomi's obvious disbelief. "I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I put myself through college on scholarships and student loans, waiting tables just like you. But you're so..." Naomi gestured vaguely at Eliza's designer watch, her perfect manicure. "Polished? Put together?" Eliza laughed softly. "That took years of practice, years of feeling like an imposter in rooms full of people born into wealth and privilege." "How did you end up running Adrian's foundation?" Naomi asked, genuinely curious now. "I started as an administrative assistant at Wolf Enterprises right out of college. Adrian's father was still running the company then. He was not like Adrian." Eliza's expression darkened momentarily. "Old Mr. Wolf came from money and expected everyone around him to know their place, but Adrian was different, even back then. He noticed my ideas, my work ethic. When he took over after his father died, he promoted me, mentored me. Now I run a foundation that gives away millions to causes we both believe in." Naomi absorbed this information slowly. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because Adrian is one of the good ones," Eliza said earnestly. "Yes, he's privileged. Yes, he sometimes forgets that not everyone grew up with the safety net he had, but his heart is genuine. When he believes in someone, like he believes in you, it's not because he sees them as a project. It's because he sees their value, their potential. He told you about our fight," Naomi guessed. "He mentioned you were upset, and I could fill in the blanks," Eliza confirmed. "The night at his apartment, we were all trying so hard to be supportive, that we probably came across as condescending instead. I should have known better. Naomi sighed, toying with a sugar packet. It's not just that night, it's everything. The way he sweeps in and tries to fix things. The way he pushes me toward opportunities I'm not sure I'm ready for. The way his world seems to be swallowing mine. Have you told him this? I tried, the night of the dinner. Tell him again, Eliza advised. Adrian is brilliant with business strategies, but sometimes needs things spelled out when it comes to personal relationships. He's used to solving problems with resources and connections. You need to help him understand that some things can't be solved that way. Naomi considered. Eliza's words, you really think we can make it work, someone like him and someone like me? I think love is a good foundation to build on, Eliza said, standing and leaving a generous tip on the table. The rest is just details. She handed Naomi a business card. If you ever need to talk, or if you decide to pursue that bookstore cafe idea and want some advice, call me. No strings attached. After Eliza left, Naomi felt strangely lighter. The conversation had given her a new perspective, not just on Adrian, but on the possibilities for her own future. Maybe she had been so focused on the obstacles that she'd lost sight of the potential. When her shift ended, instead of going home, Naomi found herself walking to the storefront Adrian had shown her. It was still vacant, the for rent sign hanging in the window. Through the glass she could see the space, the built-in counter where a coffee bar could go, the walls where bookshelves could stand, the corner where comfortable chairs could invite readers to stay a while. For the first time she allowed herself to truly envision it, not as an impossible dream, but as a potential reality. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Taking out her phone, Naomi finally responded to Adrian's text. Can we meet? There's something I want to talk about. His reply came instantly. Name the time and place. I'll be there. Naomi chose a neutral location, the waterfront park where they had often walked together. When she arrived, Adrian was already waiting, looking both hopeful and apprehensive. He was dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, his hair slightly tousled by the wind. Hey, he said softly when she approached. Hey, she replied, suddenly nervous, now that she was face to face with him. I missed you, Adrian said, not moving to touch her, respecting the distance she had established. I missed you too, Naomi admitted. But I needed time to think. They began walking along the waterfront, the gentle lapping of waves against the shore, a soothing backdrop to their conversation. I'm sorry about the dinner party, Adrian said after a moment. You were right. I should have asked you first. I got excited about introducing you to my friends, and I didn't consider how it would make you feel. Thank you for saying that, Naomi said. But it wasn't just the dinner, it was... She searched for the right words. It was feeling like my life was being rearranged without my input, like my dreams were being taken over and reshaped into something I didn't recognize anymore. Adrian nodded slowly. I can see that now. I was trying to help, but I was being controlling instead. Not controlling exactly, Naomi corrected. More like over-enthusiastic. You see a problem, you want to fix it. You see an opportunity, you want to seize it. That's who you are. It's part of what makes you successful. But my life isn't a business deal, Adrian. I need to move at my own pace, make my own decisions. You're right, Adrian acknowledged. I'm used to making things happen, removing obstacles, but I never meant to steamroll you. I just want you to be happy. I know, Naomi said softly. And that's one of the reasons I love you. Adrian's head snapped up at the words, hope blooming in his eyes. You still love you? Yes, Naomi confirmed. That never stopped. But loving someone and building a life with them are two different things. We come from such different worlds, Adrian. I'm afraid that one of us will always have to compromise too much. Or maybe we create a new world together, Adrian suggested. One that takes the best parts of both. They had reached a bench overlooking the water, and Naomi sat down, Adrian joining her. What would that look like? She asked. Adrian thought. For a moment. It would look like me learning to ask before I act. It would look like respecting your independence while still offering support. It would look like finding a balance where you can pursue your dreams on your terms, and I can help without taking over. And what about your world? Your friends, your business associates, your social obligations? They're part of my life, not my whole life, Adrian said firmly. I'd like you to meet them gradually, on your terms, when you're comfortable. Some of them you'll like. I think you and Eliza could be friends if you gave it a chance. Others, well, I don't particularly enjoy every social event either. Naomi smiled slightly at that admission. I actually met Eliza today. She came to the diner. She did? Adrian looked surprised. She didn't mention she was going to do that. She wanted to talk to me. About you, about us, about how she came from a background similar to mine. Naomi paused. It helped, hearing from someone who has navigated both worlds. Adrian looked thoughtful. I didn't know she'd do that, but I'm glad she did. Eliza is one of the most genuine people I know. I trust her judgment. She thinks we can make it work, Naomi said, if we're honest with each other, if we communicate. And what do you think? Adrian asked quietly. Naomi took a deep breath. I think I want to try, but I need some things from you. Anything, Adrian said immediately. I need you to understand that I value my independence, that sometimes I need to do things on my own, even if you could make them easier. Naomi looked him directly in the eyes. I need you to promise that you won't try to solve all my problems or push me faster than I'm ready to go, that you'll ask before you act on my behalf. Adrian nodded solemnly. I promise, and in return, I need you to promise something too. What's that? Promise me you'll tell me when I'm overstepping, Adrian said earnestly, that you won't pull away like you did this week, that you'll give us a chance to work through our differences together. I promise, Naomi said softly. Adrian reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. There's something else I want to show you. Will you come with me? Naomi hesitated only briefly before nodding. Okay. They walked to Adrian's car, and he drove them not to his penthouse as she had expected, but to the storefront she had been looking at earlier that day. To her surprise, there was a small group of people gathered outside. Katie, Mrs. Winters in a wheelchair with a nurse attendant, Eliza, and a middle-aged man Naomi didn't recognize. What's going on? Naomi asked, confused. Just hear me out before you get upset, Adrian said quickly. I know I promised not to push, and I'm not. This is just information, options. They got out of the car, and Katie immediately ran to hug her sister. Don't be mad, she whispered. This was my idea as much as his. The unfamiliar man stepped forward, extending his hand. Ms. Ellis, I'm Robert Chen, the owner of this property. Your sister and Mr. Wolf have told me about your bookstore cafe concept, and I'm intrigued. Naomi shook his hand automatically, still trying to process what was happening. Mr. Chen, it's nice to meet you, but I'm a little confused. Perhaps I can explain, Eliza stepped in smoothly. After our conversation this morning, I spoke with Katie, who told me you had gone to look at this property again. We thought it might be helpful for you to meet the owner and discuss possibilities. No commitments, just a conversation. The location has been difficult to rent since the last cafe closed, Mr. Chen explained. But a bookstore cafe with community, events could be exactly what the neighborhood needs. I'd be willing to offer favorable terms for the right business plan. Naomi looked at Adrian, who held up his hands. I'm just the facilitator here. The decision is entirely yours. If you want to walk away right now, we will. If you want to hear what Mr. Chen has to say, we can do that too. Mrs. Winters wheeled forward, taking Naomi's hand. Dear, remember what I told you about regrets, about chances not taken? Naomi felt overwhelmed, but in a different way than before. This time she didn't feel pushed or controlled. She felt supported, surrounded by people who believed in her, who wanted to help her succeed on her own terms. I'd like to hear more, she said finally, earning a beaming smile from Katie and a look of quiet pride from Adrian. Mr. Chen unlocked the door and invited them all inside. As they explored the space, he explained his terms, a gradually increasing rent structure that would start low and grow as the business became established, an option to buy after 3 years, and flexibility for renovations. It seems too good to be true, Naomi said skeptically. It's business, Ms. Ellis, Mr. Chen said frankly. I've had this property sitting empty for 6 months. A successful tenant is worth more to me than a higher initial rent that drives the business under in a year. And, he added with a glance at Adrian, I trust Mr. Wolf's judgment. If he believes in your concept, that carries weight with me. As Mr. Chen continued his tour, Naomi pulled Adrian aside. Did you arrange this? Not exactly, Adrian said honestly. After we talked last week about the space, I mentioned it to Eliza. She spoke to Katie after seeing you this morning. Katie called me, and together we contacted Mr. Chen. But this isn't me pushing. This is a team of people who care about you creating an opportunity. The choice to take it or leave it is entirely yours. Naomi looked around at the space, at Katie examining the built-in shelves, at Mrs. Winters suggesting where comfortable chairs could go, at Eliza and Mr. Chen discussing the logistics of hosting community events. It could really work, couldn't it? She said, more to herself than to Adrian. I believe it could, Adrian said, but more importantly, do you believe it could? For the first time, Naomi allowed herself to fully embrace the possibility. Yes, she said, surprise coloring her voice. Yes, I think I do. Then that's what matters, Adrian said simply. The rest is just details, business plans, financing, logistics, all solvable problems. Naomi smiled at him, recognizing his problem-solver nature asserting itself again. But this time it didn't feel threatening, it felt like partnership. I'll need to think about it, she said. Look at the numbers, consider the risks. Of course, Adrian agreed immediately. Take all the time you need. As the others continued, exploring the space, discussing possibilities, Adrian and Naomi stepped outside for a moment of privacy. Thank you, Naomi said softly, for understanding, for not giving up on me even when I pushed you away. I'll never give up on you, Adrian promised, taking her hands in his. I love you, Naomi Ellis, the waitress, the bookstore clerk, the devoted sister, the dreamer, all of you. And whatever you decide about this space, about your future, I want to be part of it, in whatever way works for both of us. I love you too, Naomi said, rising on her tiptoes to kiss him gently. And I want you in my future too. We'll figure out the how together. 6 months later, Chapter and Verse opened its doors. The bookstore cafe was small but charming, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable reading nooks, and a coffee bar serving both standard favorites and creative seasonal specialties. The journey to opening day had been a whirlwind of activity. Naomi had created a detailed business plan with some guidance from Eliza and financial advice from a small business consultant Adrian had recommended. She had secured a modest loan from a community bank, insisting on handling the financing herself rather than accepting Adrian's repeated offers to invest. Katie had graduated from nursing school and now worked part-time at a local hospital while helping manage the cafe on her days off. Mrs. Winters had recovered enough to hold court at her favorite table 3 afternoons a week, leading a popular book club for seniors that quickly became one of the cafe's signature events. Adrian had respected Naomi's need to establish the business on her own terms, offering advice when asked, but never pushing. His most significant contribution, at Naomi's request, had been designing an environmentally friendly heating and cooling system that significantly reduced the cafe's energy costs. The relationship between them had deepened and strengthened through the challenges. They had learned to communicate better, to respect each other's boundaries, to find compromise when their different perspectives clashed. They were still learning, still growing together, but the foundation was solid. On opening day, Naomi stood behind the counter, watching as customers browsed the carefully curated bookshelves and settled into the comfortable chairs with steaming mugs of coffee. Katie was at the espresso machine, chatting animatedly with a group of her nursing school friends. Mrs. Winters was holding court in her corner, surrounded by her book club members. Adrian arrived mid-morning, slipping in quietly and watching Naomi with undisguised pride. When there was a lull in customers, he approached the counter. 1 caramel latte, please, he ordered with a grin. And a moment of the beautiful owner's time if she can spare it. Naomi smiled, preparing his drink herself despite the 2 baristas she had hired. For you, I might have a minute or two. They moved to a quiet corner of the cafe, where Adrian took a sip of his latte and nodded appreciatively. Perfect as always. You're biased, Naomi laughed. Completely, Adrian agreed, but also correct. This place is amazing, Naomi. You're amazing. Naomi looked around at her dream come to life, feeling a surge of pride and gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, without all. Of you? She corrected, nodding toward Katie and Mrs. Winters. Yes, you could have, Adrian contradicted her gently. It might have taken longer, but you would have gotten here eventually. That's who you are. Determined, resilient, unstoppable when you set your mind to something. Naomi squeezed his hand, touched by his faith in her. Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to. I'm glad I have you in my life. About that, Adrian said, suddenly looking nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I was going to wait until after closing, make it a grand romantic gesture, but I don't want to wait anymore. Naomi's heart began to race as Adrian opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. Naomi Ellis, he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. When you sat down at my table that night at Bellini's, my life changed forever. You brought honesty, laughter, and love into my world. You challenged me, pushed me to be better, taught me what really matters. I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life building our world together. He took her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. Will you marry me? Naomi felt tears well up as she looked at the man before her, not the billionaire CEO, not the powerful businessman, but simply Adrian, the man who had seen her, valued her, loved her for exactly who she was. Yes, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. As Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, a spontaneous round of applause erupted in the cafe. Naomi looked up to see that everyone had been watching. Katie, Mrs. Winters, the customers, even Eliza, who had slipped in unnoticed and was standing by the door with a wide smile. Adrian pulled Naomi into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart overflow. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying at the same time, Katie rushed over to hug them both. Finally, she exclaimed, I was beginning to think he'd never ask. I was waiting for the perfect moment, Adrian defended himself with a laugh. Every moment with you is perfect, Naomi said softly, looking down at the ring on her finger, a symbol not just of their love, but of the journey they had taken to reach this point. A journey that began with a simple mistake, sitting at the wrong table. Later that evening, after the cafe had closed and the celebration with friends and family had wound down, Naomi and Adrian stood alone in the empty space. The lights were dimmed, candles still flickering on the tables, giving the room a warm, intimate glow. Happy? Adrian asked, his arms around her waist. More than I ever thought possible, Naomi admitted, leaning back against his chest. You know, Adrian mused, most people would say you made a mistake that night at Bellini's. Sitting at the wrong table, embarrassing yourself in front of a stranger. Most people would be wrong, Naomi replied, turning in his arms to face him. It wasn't the wrong table at all. It was exactly where I was meant to be. Adrian smiled, touching his forehead to hers. In the right heart. In the right heart, Naomi echoed, rising up to kiss the man who had shown her that sometimes the best beginnings come from unexpected places, and that love, when it's real, can bridge any distance, heal any doubt, and create a world where two people from different paths can find their way home to each other. As they locked up the cafe and stepped out into the night, hand in hand, Naomi felt a sense of completion she had never known before. Her dream cafe was a reality. Her sister was thriving, and the love she had found by accident had become the most certain thing in her life. Sometimes, she reflected as Adrian helped her onto his motorcycle for the ride home, the wrong table was exactly the right place to be all along.